Now, at this point in the ceremony, we continue a time-honored tradition and ask family members, along with agency escorts, to lay roses on the memorial medallion in memory of the officers from the District of Columbia, Maryland, Virginia, and federal law enforcement agencies who have been killed performing their duties during the past 12 months. We recognize these officers and their family members as symbolic representatives of all fallen officers and law enforcement survivors across this nation. From the Bureau of Indian Affairs, criminal investigator Denise Phoenix. On February 14, 2008, investigator Phoenix succumbed to severe injuries sustained when she was exposed to chemicals during a meth lab investigation 4 months earlier. Investigator Phoenix was 43 years old at the time of her death and had served and protected the citizens of her nation for 15 years. From the Chesapeake, Virginia Police Department, Detective Gerard Shivers. On January 17, 2008, Detective Shivers was shot and killed while he and members of the Special Investigation Section were serving a narcotics warrant. Detective Shivers was 34 years old at the time of his death and had served and protected the citizens of his community for 8 years. From the Drug Enforcement Administration, Supervisory Special Agent Thomas Byrne. On August 30th, 2008, Special Agent Byrne succumbed to injuries he suffered 2 days earlier when he was ambushed and beaten on a New Orleans street. Agent Byrne was attending a professional training conference at the time of the incident. He was 40 years old at the time of his death and had served and protected the citizens of his nation for 16 years. From the Federal Bureau of Prisons, Correctional Officer Jose Rivera. On June 20th, 2008, Officer Rivera was ambushed and stabbed to death by 2 inmates at the U.S. Penitentiary in Atwater, California. Officer Rivera was 22 years old at the time of his death and had served and protected the citizens of his nation for 10 months. From the Fredericksburg, Virginia Police Department, Police Officer Todd Allen Barr. On June 6, 2008, Officer Barr was shot and killed while responding to a domestic disturbance call. Officer Barr was 40 years old at the time of his death and had served and protected the citizens of his community for 3 years. From the Maryland State Police, Trooper First Class Mickey Lippy. On September 28, 2008, Trooper Lippy was killed in a helicopter crash while performing a medical evacuation of 2 critically injured victims of an automobile accident in Charles County. We also honor and remember the pilot, retired Maryland State Trooper Stephen Bunker, and 2 other individuals who also died in the crash. Trooper Lippy was 34 years old at the time of his death and had served and protected the citizens of his state for 4 years. From the Maryland Transportation Authority Police Department, Corporal Courtney Brooks. On January 1st, 2008, Corporal Brooks succumbed to injuries he suffered hours earlier when he was struck by a hit-and-run driver on I-95 in Baltimore City, Maryland. Corporal Brooks was 40 years old at the time of his death and had served and protected the citizens of his state for 13 years. From the Prince George's County, Maryland Police Department, Sergeant Richard Finley. On June 27, 2008, Sergeant Finley was intentionally struck and killed while attempting to stop a stolen vehicle. Sergeant Finley was 39 years old at the time of his death and had served and protected the citizens of his community for 10 years. From the Smithsburg, Maryland Police Department, Officer Christopher Nicholson. On December 19, 2007, Officer Nicholson was shot and killed after responding to a domestic disturbance call. Officer Nicholson was 25 years old at the time of his death and had served and protected the citizens of his community for 2 years. From the Stafford County, Virginia Sheriff's Office, Deputy Sheriff Jason Mooney. On October 19, 2007, Deputy Mooney was killed in an automobile crash on I-95 while responding to a fatal accident call. Deputy Mooney was 24 years old at the time of his death and had served and protected the citizens of his community for 2 years. We now honor 3 special agents of the United States Air Force, Office of Special Investigations. On November 1st, 2007, these 3 agents were killed when their Humvee was struck by an improvised explosive device near Balad, Iraq. Special Agent Thomas Crowd was 36 years old at the time of his death and had served and protected the citizens of his nation for 15 years. Special Agent Nathan Schuldeis was 27 years old at the time of his death and had served and protected the citizens of his nation for 2 years. And Special Agent David Weger was 28 years old at the time of his death and had served and protected the citizens of his nation for 3 years. From the U.S. Border Patrol, Senior Border Patrol Agent Luis Aguilar. On January 19, 2008, Agent Aguilar was intentionally struck as he attempted to deploy spike strips in the roadway to stop a fleeing felon near Andre, California. Agent Aguilar was 32 years old at the time of his death and had served and protected the citizens of his nation for 6 years. From the U.S. Customs and Border Protection, Border Patrol agent Gerard Dittman. On March 30th, 2008, Agent Dittman was killed in an automobile crash while en route to his patrol area. Agent Dittman was 28 years old at the time of his death and had served and protected the citizens of his nation for 1 year.